Okay, Thomas O'Neill. Oh yeah, yeah, O'Neill Thomas, $10 super chat. So to DCC the truth, the question. What's the most important thing about Hex? The community. Without people, there isn't anything, right? I mean, you could have any. I mean, to tell you the truth, like even Bitcoin. Well, the reason Bitcoin's where it's at right now is because a very large amount of people believe in it, and people give value to everything, right? If everyone in the world wanted, for some reason, right? If everyone in the world wanted this exact Pepe clock, and I had it, but everyone in the world wanted it, this Pepe clock would be worth a fortune, $1 billion. It's this whole thing about attention and camaraderie and a community and people who believe in it, and there are building, and now there's an entire ecosystem being built on it, as well as one thing that it has. It's such a simple thing, but has something called trustless interest, which is like, you think that's like, what does that mean? But that trustless interest is so insane with all the things that's going on in DeFi. The one beautiful thing that Hex provides is trustless interest. When what that means is the contract code is locked in place. There's no bugs in it. It's done, immutable. That means it can't be fucked with. They can't change anything in the code base. It's locked in. So if you understand now, all you got to do is know the rules of how Hex works for staking, and basically now you have a system where you're getting interest all the time, all the time, all the time, all the time. And God damn it, Tap 2, I ain't answering that shit. But you keep answering and answer. It's this whole thing where, like, you decide to stake a certain amount of Hex, a certain amount of T-share. You lock it up for this many years. It comes out. You will get your interest 100% guaranteed from the inflation that it has, and then when it comes out, you get your Hex. And then so far we've been averaging something like a 38% APY on above average stake lengths and stuff like that. So it's a really really cool system. For most things, you really can't count on that sort of, like, you've seen stuff like people trying to earn interest on stable coins and everything like that, and they can't really do that because the system, at some point it breaks and stuff, where you have too many billions of dollars trying to earn 10-20%, and they can't generate enough yield on the open market for so much money, and then they end up having the peg breaks and the coins go to zero. That's what happened with Luna. That's sort of what's happening right now with Tron's USDD. But these are kind of like the intangibles. The one beautiful thing is Hex can always pay its interest, because it's just like it's actually almost like the Fed a little bit in a way. You can always pay the interest because it can always print the Hex to pay out the interest. But the amazing thing about Hex is its interest rate, its actual inflation rate is extremely small. The inflation rate of Hex is 3.69%. That's it. So people are like, wait, how is it possible? How is it possible that I'm earning 40% APY, but the inflation rate's only 3.69% a year? How is that possible? Well, this is sort of one of the magics of something called the OA, which is the origin address, which is like, it's this big gigantic wallet of Hex. Depending on someone's numbers, it could be 75, 85% of the entire supply of Hex is just not even staked at all. It's controlled by a bunch of wallets that are basically controlled by one central wallet, and they're just sitting there essentially getting eroded away. But because you have such a large amount of that Hex not being staked, that ends up that 85% of Hex is getting inflated by every year by 3.69. And what's going on is, because that stuff's not staking, the competition in the pool is not that large. So what ends up happening is while you're staking your Hex, right, there's going to be a large portion of people that are probably going to hold 10, 20, 50% of their Hex liquid. And then some people fully staked out, other ones halfway staked out, and everywhere in between. And basically what you end up having is you end up having something like maybe 5 or 6% of this Hex supply being circulating, and the rest being staked. So you have something maybe like 10, 11% of Hex being staked at all times. So it's really like 10% of Hex is being staked. So that interest ends up kind of expanding out to the point where now you're earning 38% APY as an interest rate for staking your Hex past, that's an average. So it's like, if you end up taking it up to 10 years, you get the full 36% APY. If you stake only 1 year, you're earning something like 12%. But usually it's a little higher, because you have like the T-shirt payouts going higher, because less people are staking, because people are playing the price volatility game with Hex right now. So right now people are earning kind of buku bucks per T-share, which is really, really amazing. So yeah. Yeah, dollar cost crypto. The best thing about Hex is actually real staking. You can just end stake whenever you want. Sort of. You can't. So there's rules with Hex, right? And I'll give you. I'm gonna give you guys a couple easy, like, sort of breakdown rules. Okay. So you can stake Hex anywhere from 1 day to 5,555 days, which it ends up equaling up to 15.2 years. That's a long time. We call it in Hex cuatro cinco, baby. Cuatro cinco, cuatro cinco, cuatro cincos in the Hex community. So there is rules. Okay. So one of the basic rules for like Hex is basically this: any stake that's under 90 days, you have to complete to term. Let me explain. So if let's just say I stake my Hex for 1 day and I decide to emergency unstake, which basically means like I just want my money back real quick. What ends up happening is that 1 day, any short-term stake, you have to complete it or you lose all the money. The reason that stipulation is there in the contract code, that's locked in now in place, so you guys understand this, that's in place right now. So people don't trick people by doing. There's a really annoying thing that some people can do where like they'll do like a massive, they'll do a massive like 90-day stake, and then they'll like they could try to emergency unstake it, get their money back, and then trick people into staking more, or like they'll try to play kind of whale games. So it's kind of to stop a lot of the fuckery in the Hex space and stuff like that, from a lot of people doing these kind of dumb little things of scaring people. Like, holy crap, a gigantic whale staked all this money right here. And then they got out and they tricked a bunch of people. Woo! And then a bunch of people stake after them. And then they can't dump on him. And then he dumps on them. So it's basically to stop a lot of kind of that fuck shit in the system. So now that 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 that's one stipulation. Now, once you get past 90 days, let's just say we get to a 1 year stake as an example. Okay. Let's just say you stake your Hex for 1 year, 365 days. There's a rule that ends up happening, right? In order to take out, let's just say I put 10,000 Hex for 1 year as an example. You have to serve at least half of the time in order to get your Hex back, the principal of your Hex. So you forego the first half a year of interest of your Hex stake if you decide to take it halfway, because the whole thing that Hex kind of runs on is something called the truth engine, which means if you say you're going to do something on the blockchain, you have to do it. There is ways to take some stuff out if for emergencies, and there's a reason for that, because this stuff happens in real life, and then you want to have the ability to have to get some of your principal out, or principal plus some interest if need be. But it's there to essentially mean to essentially for people not to play these games of like taking it out early unless there's an absolute emergency. That's why it's called an emergency end stake, right? So the reason it has that is because that they want that interest to be paid out to people who say the truth and do what they say and they mean, which is like, I stake this fucking money here for 1 fucking year. That means 1 year from now it comes out. Okay. Now, how much is one Hex t-shirt? It's 20,000 Hex. And I'll explain it. I can show it in a minute as well. Like I'll bring it up on the screen. But you have to, any stake past 90 days, you have to complete at least halfway through to get your original principal back. Afterwards, you can complete the rest of it. So there's a really kind of a crazy sort of thing. So let's just say you completed 75% of the days. Okay. You will more than likely just earn about, if I remember correctly, I think it's like you will earn your principal plus 25% of the interest on 75%. It's super. The way it works is that it's super incentivized that you get more of your interest on the back half to make sure that you fully complete your staking process. Now, if for some reason, let's just say I'm at day 364 and I want to unstake my Hex. If I unstake my Hex 1 day before, I will receive emergency unstake my Hex 1 day before, like the last day. I don't know why anyone would do this, but this is pretty stupid. But even if you did, my God. Hex Monkey, thank you so much. Yeah. Hex Monkey, the Hex Wiki penalties show the calculation for unstake penalties. Yeah, thank you, Hex Monkey. Shout out to him. That's a cool little place to check it out. Now, now Let's just say you decided to end your stake one day before, just one day, right? You would think like, yeah, I should be getting, my principal plus like 95% of my interest. No, you get your principal, your 10,000 hex plus, as an example, I'm gonna say the interest, like it's gonna be 10,000 total. So you would get 5,000. You would only receive you would only receive your principal plus half of the interest you should have earned just by leaving one day. 50% of the interest is earned on the last day. That's how crazy it is. And the reason that this is put out this way is to make sure that people do what they say, and then the people who don't get penalized. And that, so what ends up when you emergency unstake, that interest that was gained does not disappear. What ends up happening is half of it half of it gets given to every other staker that's staking, which means like normal people, everybody, whales, everybody gets dribbled out, and then the other half of interest gets given out back to the OA. Well, Miguel, why does that? What the fuck? Why is that? Well, here's what happened. The OA doesn't really. It has staked a little bit, but it doesn't stake. So half of this interest ends up going back to the OA, which what ends up happening, inflating their supply. That means that's what that does is slowly over time increase the amount of it increases the amount of their supply, which then increases the amount of like of interest that you get paid out, because now the wallet has a little bit more hex. So that means there's less hex on the other side staking, and that ends up bringing up the grand total of t-shirt payout for everybody else who is staking, because they're getting inflated down to a larger degree.